What's up?
What is up, Nerfherders? Welcome back to another episode here in season 3. A little bit delayed. My schedule is insane right now, to say
Oh,
the
you and me both,
least.
buddy. You and me both.
Uh, I've had my day-to-day shift around maybe 4 or 5 times, just as far as what I'm going to do and what I'm able to do. And are
Mm,
we still in a curfew around here right now?
no, curfew
Okay, I was gonna
got
say
rescinded.
I thought that I was hearing something about it being extended for a week. Um, for those who are tuning in and don't know, we are in Omaha, Nebraska, and this is actually going to be our first topic tonight because as uh, everybody's wow, that is loud. Okay, now I'm really hearing what you're talking about there. Um, the uh, the events in Minnesota, or specifically Minneapolis, around George Floyd's death, had a ripple effect throughout the entire country. And Omaha was no stranger to the protests that resulted. Um, the for the most part, they were peaceful, and but I think what the pattern that we saw in a lot of different major cities was that things started out peaceful and then escalated to a point where there was rioting, there was looting, um, uh, police slash military action. It got pretty crazy. And so here in Omaha, we did end up falling under curfew for a little while. That interfered with some things. I attended one protest myself, and just to grab some photos and show my support. Unfortunately, I had work and a bunch of other stuff that stopped me from attending the amount that I could have done. But on top of that, unfortunately, we had a I'm going to be kind of vague around the details because I don't want to make, I guess not vague around the details, but like I really want to be careful about what I say because it's a very sensitive topic and I want to make sure that I'm only getting you guys the facts. Because we can speculate on nerdy stuff all we want, but I'm not going to speculate on something this serious. Uh, I want to base everything that I can off of like confirmed news reports and everything else. But we had a local bar owner who went to his bar in downtown Omaha, and he was carrying a gun, which legally he was not allowed to carry. His concealed carry permit had expired. Um, I believe he was there with a family member. I think that it was his father, but I've heard altering stories there as well. Um, but there was an altercation of some kind. I do not have definitive, absolute confirmation on who started it or how it escalated to the point where unfortunately a young man by the name of James Scurlock was killed. He was shot by the local bar owner out in front of the bar that he was there to protect, in his words. And that the issue around police and systemic racism was already pretty well ignited at that point, and that was also before the recent news that we have around the officer surrounding George Floyd, and so things escalated again to another degree. It was actually, I believe, it was actually surrounding this event that the curfew was put in place. But I'm a little bit unsure of the timeline as far as all that was going. For all we know, Omaha's plan was to invoke those curfews well before all this stuff. It was just taking care of logistics. Who knows? Um, but yeah, unfortunately, we did have as of right now, we've had numerous injuries because of re- protesters resisting, trying to exercise their uh, their right to gather, their right to free speech, and unfortunately, we've also lost a life in the area. So we definitely wanted to acknowledge um, our support for the family of James Scurlock, and do not we absolutely condone his killing, or absolutely condemn his killing, not condone. That's Man, that's an edit that could go bad, really bad. Um, yeah, we in no way condone his killing, and we just wanted to make sure that because we have a lot of local Omaha listeners, we wanted to make sure that our stance was very firm. And yeah, that's uh, that's about as deep as I would want to go as far as that goes. Like, I mean, Josh, what is like you and I haven't been communicating too terrible much. We've been bouncing stories back and forth, just various news clips that we had been seeing. But what's your take on all this so far?
Well, I'll respect your decision not to get too deep into it. And yes, we don't want to speculate. Um, I mean, the Omaha was not unlike any other city. Over the weekend, there pretty much every major city across the nation had their own protests, and some of them became riots, and some of them didn't. Um, as far as the situation in Omaha, it was very unfortunate, and it's
Yep.
angered a lot of people. Um, well, I mean, it's not the same situation as Minneapolis, but similar to Minneapolis, um, uh, the county attorney came out pretty quickly. I think he wanted to expedite the situation and address it as quickly as possible. And so the next day, he was in front of the press conference. They showed the video. They showed two videos of what happened from two different angles. And according to him, um, even though the gentleman did have it was an expired concealed carry license, correct? It was
Yes.
yeah, he had
Yes. His
he
his
had
time had his
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 time had
expiration date
passed.
had passed.
But according to the county attorney, the bar owner um, claimed he was defending himself, and he wasn't defending his business. And because he was defending himself, the county attorney did not believe that there was enough evidence to charge him with a crime. Um, I did not agree with that. Um,
I
in
didn't either.
in fact, one of the reporters immediately asked him after that. He said, "Okay, so because you're not charging this bartender, does that mean other businesses have the right to bear arms and protect their businesses?" And the county attorney immediately said, "No, that's illegal." And so my question is, then why was this guy down there? Why was he down there in the middle of the protests with a gun outside of his business, if not to protect his business? That's clearly why he was there. The
So
footage, I
the
mean,
uh, the big so again, I don't want to speculate, but I will say based off of the information that I have, he like people were already being asked not to go downtown at this point in
mm-hmm,
time. Curfews
mm-hmm.
were already active. This incident, I'm not going to call it a crime right now. I personally believe that it is a crime, but
He hasn't been charged. He
he
hasn't
has
been
not.
charged. So
He
right
hasn't been
now,
charged with
yeah,
anything,
with anything.
which is my real big problem. I'll come to that here in a second. But there were orders not to go downtown. Um, he did not. He was not legally carrying a firearm at the time. He was illegally carrying a firearm at the time.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
I have not gotten this confirmed. I did not see the video, but according to a couple different reports, there were warning shots that were fired,
Yep.
um, which is also illegal.
Yes.
Even in the case of defending yourself, that would I believe that would fall easily under reckless endangerment, which is I don't know if that's a misdemeanor or a felony, but it's a crime. But yeah, he's carrying a weapon illegally in Omaha. Um, he fired into a like he fired warning shots, which would I'm sure. And then the shots that he fired that did end up hitting uh, James Scurlock, I can't imagine that he was following that when those shots were fired that he was following the tenets of firearm safety, which is know your target and know what's behind your target. Um, so
Well,
based on
okay. Well, I
I wasn't
mean,
I didn't get to see what was there. I haven't seen a
they've
video that
the county attorney released the videos, and the videos are very clear, and he agreed with the order of events in the videos, but he disagrees with the general public as to the crime. But the videos show hit the bartender with an older man who many believe is his father, but I like you said, I don't think that's been confirmed. They're standing outside of their business, and there are protesters walking around and walking down the sidewalk. And you can't hear the dialogue, but clearly there's people walking by. The older man pushes one of the protesters. The protester wasn't going up to him, who's walking by him. The older man pushes one of the protesters. Another person pushes the older man for pushing the protester. Then the bartender takes out his gun, and immediately people start screaming, he's got a gun. A girl jumps on top of him to try to take away the gun, afraid that he's going to shoot somebody. He pushes her off of him and fires 2 warning shots, and then James jumps on top of him to try to secure the gun. And
do you see where the warning shots are fired? I don't mean to
yes,
interrupt,
yeah,
but like he fire them straight up into
he
the
pushed
air.
him off and fired them upwards.
Okay. What goes up must come down. Like
Exactly. People seem to forget that. It doesn't just keep on going. So
no,
thankfully,
no.
those bullets didn't hit anybody. But unfortunately, James jumped on top of him like the girl did to try to secure the gun. He put the gun behind him and shot him, and then James ended up dying. So that was the order of events, and the county attorney does not dispute that order. He listed that order on camera, but he still said that there wasn't enough evidence to charge. And that angered a lot of people. And then we got some protests, and then we got a curfew. But there has been an update today, which is encouraging. The county attorney says he stands by his decision, and he believes he made the right decision. And of course, he keeps saying that he has a history of defending the minorities in town, and that he's not, prejudiced, but still, he defends his decision. However, because of the nature of the event and how invested the community is in it, he is calling for a grand jury, which will mean that 16 randomly selected jury members from the local area. They'll go through the whole jury process. There'll be a special prosecutor that selects 16 people, and they will be presented the evidence to decide if there is something to charge this man with.
See, that was the problem that I had, is that there were definitely it was very clear that crimes had been committed, that he was not he was not 100% legally acting, and so there was definitely I mean, if you really want to call it, was like, sure, there might be what's the term, probable doubt, or reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt that anything was premeditated. But I mean, you bring a gun to a protest area to defend a business. If your intention is going there to defend, you're probably going there with the notion that it is a possibility that you may end up shooting somebody. You may end up using that weapon.
And he did put it on his Facebook that he was going downtown to defend his business. That's what he said.
I believe the actual statement said that he was going on military style fire watch.
Fire watch,
was
yes.
What the post actually said, which
yes,
also doesn't make sense to me. Something that I did have confirmed, his he did not own the building, so his lease for that building was actually was terminated.
Yep, he's been evicted and everything. Yep.
Yeah, he's been evicted. His lease was terminated, and as we're now seeing, a grand jury is now being called to go over the evidence, which I think what should have happened first. I think I don't understand personally why they would have ignored the other charges, considering the severity of them.
Yeah.
If he had been legally carrying a weapon, I can understand a little bit more about their haste to dismiss charges
Mm-hmm.
to try and to try and prove that no wrongdoing was committed. But unfortunately, it's very clear that that is not the case. He was not legally in possession of that weapon at the time. He was not technically, well, neither were the protesters, but he was not technically supposed to be downtown at that hour in the
Mm-hmm.
day. They had asked people to leave. Um,
Yeah.
there's enough circumstances there to create that reasonable doubt that he wasn't there with the intention
Mm-hmm.
of hurting somebody. Um,
And on top of that, I know the county attorney can't take this into account when he's talking about charging, but it doesn't help that the man is known in several circles to be a
yes,
bigot. I mean, I have never been to his bar. I've never met him in person. I know I recognized his name immediately. He's been in several controversies in this town in the near recent past, and no one that knew who he was seemed to be shocked that this was the situation he was in. And I know that can't be immediately taken into account as for as you know in terms of charging, but it doesn't help the situation. So um, but again, this is ongoing, and he hasn't been charged, and we don't want to speculate things, but it is encouraging to see that after well, and here's the thing too. I mean, things when this was announced, things got this was part of things that were we had a very crazy weekend here. We had protesters, we had riots, we had a lot of things going on. We had military, we had tear gas, we had a lot of people crying injustice in town. We had curfews. When this first got announced that they weren't going to charge him, there were many people in Omaha that were bracing for an explosion. They thought that things were going to get worse, and actually, they didn't. Actually, there was not this big incursion that people were expecting. The family were very vocal. They didn't want a violent uprising. There was a big peaceful protest down in Lincoln in front of the Capitol that was awe-inspiring and very peaceful, and was condoned and praised by the mayor of Lincoln. But there were a lot of people that were calling for while they appreciated the county attorney wanting to address this quickly, there were a lot of people that said maybe you looked at this too fast, and we
yeah,
need to dig a little deeper. I mean, it seems the common consensus, and then it gained national attraction. There was national news agencies reporting on this, and so even though he's not backing down, at least he's not afraid of oversight, and he's going to open it up for a grand jury, and that is encouraging.
yeah. It's it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances. It is a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, there's been enough leeway given in light of the protests to allow, like there weren't, like you said, there wasn't a massive uptick in rioting and outrage, as far as physical outrage, um, to where things escalated to a point where they didn't, where it kind of got lost in the shuffle. That's what I kind of feel like is happening with these riots when they occur. And I mean, the argument can be made that there are people there who are specifically wanting to start riots to kind of take away from the matter at hand. Um, but I think a lot of people knew that if things got worse, it would really take away from the possibility that things do get investigated properly, or things do end up getting handled appropriately. And thankfully, level minds prevailed, and now we are seeing that there's some hope that at least I won't say that justice will be served, because I don't, like we said, like I don't want to speculate. I do want to see justice served, but I want to make sure that it's investigated properly. Um, Personally, I hope that the perpetrator does serve some time for the crimes that he absolutely did commit. I think even if you kill even if you kill somebody in self defense, like there should definitely be more time to investigate than what there was.
Well, you're right. I mean,
it was
even if
I mean,
that is the
it was the next
detail,
day.
yeah, even
It
if
was the
that is the
next
detail
day.
in question, you're right. Before you even talk about that detail,
Yeah,
he did commit other crimes. So he should be at least considered to be charged for those crimes. And then you should take a second to talk about this bigger one. But yeah, it's not like he committed zero crimes that night. He
exactly.
definitely committed crimes. It's the big one that should be investigated a little more. But yeah. Well, and I mean, with Minneapolis, and and Mr. Floyd, what we saw could have happened in Omaha. We saw, the
Could have
wrongful
happened
death.
anywhere. That's the big
It could
thing.
have happened anyway. You're right. We saw the wrongful death of this man. We saw them kind of quickly come out and suggest that no charges were going to be made. We saw Minneapolis light on fire, literally in some cases.
Yep.
And then by the end of that first week, we saw them change their mind and decide, you know what, we are going to arrest at least the lead cop and charge him with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. This week, oh, that didn't stop things in Minneapolis. I mean, some
No,
people were happy about that, but many people said that seems
unsatisfied.
yeah, they were not satisfied with that. They also believed that the three other cops that were on the scene, that were two of them were holding him down, one of them was stopping or securing the scene. People believed that they should be charged as well. Because here's the deal, and the argument for that is, it's just like with regular criminals, right? So if four men go into rob a building, and in the course of that somebody dies, they all get charged with murder. Like they all, if even if you don't, if someone dies wrongfully during a crime, they all get charged because they were all part of that crime. They're all connected that way. That's how regular criminals are treated. And people were like, well, these four cops were working in tandem together, and maybe they all shouldn't be charged the same amount, but they all should be charged for something. And instead, only one person was charged and three were fired. And if you're firing cops, why else would you fire a cop if not because they did something so wrong that they should be fired for?
Yeah. And there was also a lot of information on the backgrounds of the officers involved, specifically.
Yeah, that didn't help.
Specifically, the officer that killed him. I won't say his name because that's what we don't want. We don't want more publicity specifically for. We want people to remember George Floyd's name, not specifically the officer's name. But yeah, some a hefty amount of complaints in his record.
And complaints from the state's leadership too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It wasn't just the people. It was some powerful people that were saying this isn't right. We need to dig a little deeper in here too. And I'm guessing that's what you were about to get to, is the update on that.
Well, so there was an update that the Attorney General, I believe it's the Attorney General from Minnesota, Keith Ellison, upgraded the charges today. On that officer up to from third-degree murder to second-degree murder. Now, that person actually took over the prosecution from the county attorney, which was who initially laid out no charges and then upgraded to third-degree murder. And then he has also stated that they will seek charges for the remaining officers that were there. I'm trying to find out what those. I'm
not sure if they've actually been released yet. I don't think they've released the charges.
Yes, yes, it was.
Have they?
The other officers at the scene were each charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder while committing a felony, and with aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter with culpable negligence. Both charges. That's
typically how criminals are, are charged.
It sounds right. So the big distinction here between second-degree murder and first-degree murder, which a lot of people on Twitter were asking for in response to a lot of the news stories here, for first-degree murder, you have to be able to prove premeditation. And I have
is it premeditation or is it intent? I thought it was just intent. because
Well,
second and third doesn't have the intent piece.
I think it's both.
Okay.
Technically,
Okay. Because I know that second and third degree don't have the intent portion on there, but I haven't dug this
a
deep.
non premeditated killing resulting from an assault in which death of the victim was a distinct possibility. Second degree murder is different from first degree, which is a premeditated intentional killing or
Okay.
results from a
So
vicious
there's that
crime such as
intent
arson,
there.
rape, or armed robbery.
Yeah. I mean I know a lot of people want that first degree just because it's the big one. I think it's very common when you hear people say that that's kind of the hardest one to get. You know, sometimes when you go big, you have a greater risk of failing than success. But at least second degree is a upgrade from third degree. Third degree has a max of 25 years. And let's be honest, how often do you hear about somebody getting the max?
I
How
mean,
often do you hear
even
about a
when they're not
cop getting a
even when
max?
they're not cops,
Yeah,
you don't hear a
right.
max for that. But
Second
um,
degree is 40 years or 45 years. I think it's 40 years. And then there's another 10 tacked on for second degree manslaughter, which he's also been charged with. So,
yeah,
I mean, he could
personally,
be facing up to 50 years if he gets the max on both of these.
personally, I feel that this is a more fitting situation. And had these charges and this information come out at first, um, instead of them announcing that there would be no charges filed, if they had announced at least that they were investigating and
Yeah.
then had charges come out, we probably would not have seen the impact that we did. Because the I'm gonna close out this part of the story with this because we've already put in a lot more time than I think we were even planning on. Um, the police prosecution, the justice system, is what's upholding the legal standard for the law that we follow in this country. And for them to be able to do that effectively, I feel that they need to be subject to upholding that standard no matter the person involved. So if I mean, it's a very easy thing to understand. If you have a cop who commits a crime, and they are the ones who are normally trying to keep people enforcing the law, and then they don't have to follow the law themselves, it's kind of like it's like a parent who's telling their kid not to eat sugar and then downing like 20 Snickers bars, and saying, "Well, I can do what I want. I make the rules." It falls flat on its face, and so the people who uphold the justice system need to be held to that high standard.
And there is a cascade effect. I mean, murder, killing somebody is one of the worst crimes out there. It's one of the, I mean, it's one of the worst. And so if one of the worst crimes is not taken seriously, then smaller crimes like damaging property and looting and everything seem trivial. And then things like these riots happen because, you know, why respect any of the system if the system itself won't respect it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a crazy situation, but these are good updates. These are encouraging updates,
Yeah,
and it'll
we
be
we
interesting
got
to see
some
where it goes from here.
we got the first bit of I mean, I don't necessarily want to say good news because it's
Steps in the right direction.
yeah, it steps in the right direction. Good news seems a little
Premature.
yeah,
And
yeah, because we're
Yeah.
we're seeing that they're looking in the right direction. These are not convictions; these are just charges.
Yeah.
So these officers have not been convicted of anything; they've just been charged.
Right.
I will say that the timing for this event could not have been worse. 2020 seems to be just beating everybody down. Speaking of which, on a lighter note, let's jump into a lighter note. So AMC Theaters has been a group that we have been talking about for a while. Theaters in general have been ones that we've talked about on the podcast a lot because theaters were hit very hard, much like a lot of businesses by COVID-19. And AMC, popped up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of speculation, especially when they announced. What was the first sign that they showed? Wasn't it that they were Weren't they filing for bank? I think they were filing for bankruptcy.
They were on the verge of filing for
They were on the
bankruptcy.
verge of it. Did
Yeah,
they ever
and then
officially do it?
well, they halted it because then it was right when Trump and the government started talking about the reopening process and how and someone mentioned, I'm not sure if it was Trump or somebody on his team, but somebody mentioned how theaters would be a part of that process, and they got a little push and a little assistance at that point, and so they said we're not down and out yet. And then right after that, there was the rumors about Amazon, so they got another little kick there about Amazon possibly buying them. They had a little spike in their stocks, and they got a little more kick and help there. But sadly, it seems like it wasn't enough.
And also, something that's mentioned in this article. This is from CNN Business.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this news story bumped out to everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the uh, the stock market for specifically AMC has been kind of like bouncing around because of the amount of speculation that's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
But not only are they not open, they're actually quoted. I can't remember. I didn't see who actually said it. I don't even think they listed it. It says we are generating effectively no revenue, the company said in a regulatory filing on Wednesday. Um, AMC will continue to monitor the potential lifting of various government operating restrictions, but added that the chain has serious challenges even if restrictions are lifted. That includes studios holding back new films from being shown. Specifically because I believe that those films can also the film studios also do not want to be liable for any outbreaks or any
Yeah.
negative press that they might end up being associated with as a result of opening these things up. They also went on to say that the company had a cash balance of $718.3 million as of April, which you can spend an awful lot of money to keep paying the bills for empty buildings between April and June.
Well, they did say at one point that they were stopping. They had stopped paying for rent.
They had stopped
I
paying for rent.
Yeah, I do remember
Okay.
hearing them that, but they're still bleeding. They're still bleeding
Oh,
money.
absolutely. They say that we believe we have the cash resources to reopen our theaters and resume our operations this summer or later. Our liquidity needs thereafter will depend, among other things, on the timing of a full resumption of operations, the timing of movie releases, and our ability to generate revenues, which is fair. Um,
Yeah.
like you kind of because I mean, as soon as the government regulations are lifted and they have the opportunity to do that, even theaters were already speculating that would probably only be up to half capacity, and that's not going to generate the amount of anywhere near the amount of revenue that they would before. But on top of that, you're going to have. I mean, it's not unreasonable to believe that there's a lot of people who still are not going to be comfortable running off to the theater after that. So you have this crazy amount of wild card chain of events. It's I would hate to own stock with AMC and be in the process of like trying to balance out where it's at in the market because there's just there's no real solid way of knowing how things are going to go right now.
Well, I mean, and it doesn't help that things just keep on being up in the air and possibly pushed back. I mean,
I
a
think
couple
one of our
weeks
last
ago,
podcasts they were saying that they were doing pretty good.
well,
That they were hopeful.
we were a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how things were looking up for July and how things might come out in July. Well, now July is starting to sound more like August, and even the new Tenet trailer did not have the July 17th date that they have been hoping to get. They said coming soon, which basically means maybe on the 17th. Maybe we come out in August and we push out Wonder Woman to some other date. Things are There's a lot things going on, and the reason why July might not be happening is because some of the biggest theater markets in the nation, on the coastal cities, are talking about not getting to that phase in their cities until August. And if they're not in that phase and their theaters aren't open, the studios aren't going to want to release their movie if their biggest areas of the nation where they get the most money from are not open. They're not going to open a
Yeah.
huge movie theater if the only place you can watch it is Omaha, Nebraska. I'm sad to say. So now AMC's having to bleed a little bit more until possibly August, and it's just every day, every week, every month is them bleeding. And it sucks because this is on a giant scale, but it's just like, it's just like smaller businesses who thought that 2020 was going to be their year, and they put plans and strategies in place, and they spent a little bit more money so that they can go big this year, and then this happens and now they're crushed. And AMC has been building up to that for the last few years. They are a giant chain that has been buying up so much. They currently own, in 2019, they operated over 1,000 theaters worldwide, 1,004 theaters worldwide, operating 11,000 screens in 15 countries. So that's a lot. That is a lot. That's a lot of money. And they were doing it by, we've talked about this before, by sometimes just building, sometimes taking over failing theaters so that they can have that many more screens in those towns. Well, they were very ambitious, and things were on the verge of starting to pay off for them. And then this happened. And unfortunately, it's just, it's a gamble. You're always making a gamble when you make those decisions. And nobody could have seen this year coming. And so, unfortunately, this is where we're at.
And it's funny that you bring up Tenet, because I actually looked up Unhinged to see how they were doing, because we knew, and if you listen to our previous podcast, you know that Unhinged and Tenet were unofficially competing for the spot of being the first movie release outside of restrictions.
Right.
And they are holding true to their July 1st opening day.
Well, they're holding true to it because they got nothing to lose. No one would notice if they didn't come out on the first. And if they did come out on the first, they'd probably still make more money than they plan to, because there are theaters open, and they will make money being the only new movie to come out, especially if it's a new movie with a recognizable actor. A lot of films have been coming out and have been in some theaters. No big films, no big names in these films. And so you get a Russell Crowe movie, it could still make money if it's the only new film that's being shown in whatever theaters are open. But I don't think they were ever going to make a lot of money. They're a brand new studio. It looks like a low budget film, so anything is better than nothing. And they have next to nothing to lose, honestly. Whereas Tenet and Warner Brothers and Christopher Nolan has so much to lose.
We've also got this is a small story. I don't imagine this going too terrible long, but it's Cinemark, which is Cinemark Holdings, on Wednesday laid out its health and safety plan for reopening its theaters during a call with Wall Street analysts, and said, among other things, that it will require all of its employees to wear masks, but not guests. Which, I mean, how do you feel about that? What was your gut reaction to that?
Well, we talked about this before about how are theaters going to survive, because theaters make most of their money off concessions. And if people can't eat their concessions because they have masks on, then how is the theater going to make money? And so it makes sense.
We're in the same boat.
Yeah, it makes sense that this theater chain is saying this is how we make money. Is it safe? It's up for debate. If they're crazy distancing their theaters, is it much different than walking around in the store without a mask? No, people are doing that already. I think it's still the general consensus that it's safe if you go out with a mask, but a lot of people aren't nowadays, and I believe
safer, anyway.
Yeah, it's safer. It's definitely safer. It's a better thing. Most people would still agree that it's better to put a mask on when you go out. But if the Cinemark is doing drastic distancing inside their screens, maybe they feel like that is enough. And the only way they're going to be able to make money is if they can sell concessions. And the only way people are going to eat concessions is if they don't have a mask.
Yeah, I mean, you could also go the oh man, the Hannity route where you just lift the mask off and put some food in there and then put it
And
back
then
on.
what's the point? Yeah.
And
Well,
then
there's actually a lot of there's been masks I wish I would have prepared these pictures already. There's now manufacturers that are putting out masks with zippers on 'em or with holes in them. And people's BDSM masks are coming in handy now because they already have those zippers on them.
did you see the
But
guy? Did you see the guy who like cut the front of his jeans out and he put that on there so the
yeah,
zipper's just right there and the buttons.
exactly. Right. But
I mean, it's
then it
clever. I'll
kind of
give him
defeats
that.
the purpose, right? But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, the CDC still currently recommends people wear cloth face coverings when out in public, but
right.
that's of right now. We're still talking. Like when did they actually say they were? They're planning to reopen its theaters on June 19th in a 4-phase reopening that would hopefully see it reopen all domestic locations by July 10th. The reopening would begin with a 5-theater test in its circuit close to the company's headquarters in Texas. That way they can oversee and ensure that health and safety guidelines are sufficient and being met.
Yep.
So, yeah, they're dipping their toe in the water. And honestly, I think if you had people who were going out to the theater and then found out that they were required to wear a mask or they would be denied entry, you're going to look at a lot more crap there. I would hope that at this point they're at least putting out some sort of a recommendation that people wear masks, but also understanding it's like, yeah, you can't. I can tell you, going to a movie theater without getting popcorn is a depressing thought for me. I don't like that, but at the same time, I want to be safe. So it's like, I definitely value my safety over having a large extra buttered popcorn. But yeah, I don't know. We'll just kind of have to see. But we've got more movie news that you ended up finding. How do you feel about the Universal's monster world so far? Because I saw The Mummy and I wasn't terribly impressed.
Well, actually, let me bring that up because
It wasn't
do you remember?
awful, but it wasn't great either.
Yeah, it wasn't. You're
you had
talking about the Tom
Cruise
Cruise ones, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when they announced that one, and then let me pull up the picture because then they put out this epic picture, and they said, guys, we're the original cinematic universe, and we're coming back. We're coming back, and we're gonna claim the throne. And and they took this picture right here, and this was to show that. Let's see here. This was the new cinematic universe right here. You had the Mummy, you had the Wolfman. I think they also had. I don't think they were including Dracula, but they also had Dracula movie that came out around then. I think that was originally an attempt to start it up. Then that failed. So then this was their new attempt, and they called it the Dark Universe. And it was going to start with Tom Cruise's The Mummy, and it did not work. It did not work. In fact, it tripped over itself from the get-go with the trailers. The trailers were parodied and memed so much that it was a joke months before it actually hit the theaters. As much as I love Tom Cruise, and I did end up seeing it, it was an okay Saturday afternoon movie.
Yeah, I mean, my expectations were low, so they weren't dashed or anything like that. But I wasn't.
But it wasn't no, cinematic universe launcher. It was no Iron Man, part 1 of a universe. Nothing
again,
about it.
And we've talked about that before, trying not to compare any like movie universe to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's kind of tough not to.
I wasn't comparing it to Iron Man. I was comparing it.
I know
to,
you weren't, but that was the expectation that a lot of people had when Universe made that distinction. There, like, we were the original movie universe. We're bringing it back,
and then they released pictures like this, before the movie even came out.
You got the Mummy. I mean, and Russell Crowe was in the Mummy as well as Jekyll and Hyde.
What was Depp supposed to be doing? Do you remember what he was supposed to do?
I do not remember.
I don't know what he was going to be in.
Universal monster movie. Boss of Universal Studio admits, this is February 20th of 2020. Boss of Universal Studio admits the Depp and Cruise fronted Dark Universe plan failed. He has admitted that the plans for its rebooted monster movies, the so-called Dark Universe, was a failure. Yeah, you just said that. But Javier Bardem was also to be included in there. When was this? Sorry, USA Today. I'm not buying anything. It does not have. It's not jumping out right at me. I don't know if you're finding it.
Maybe they didn't announce. I'm looking. Maybe they just didn't announce what it was going to be. They just, because I know that the next movie that they were planning after The Mummy was supposed to be a Frankenstein picture of some kind.
So it looks like The Invisible Man. There's a story here from March of 2019. The Invisible Man is moving forward without Johnny Depp.
Maybe it was The Invisible Man.
Maybe it was.
And then they turned it into what it is. Well, back then when we had this picture, I'm looking at the Screen Crush headline. This is Dark Universe, a shared universe for Universal Monsters dies at first movie. Dies at one. It's like, oh, that's rough. But that's what happened. It died.
I think it would have been better if they had just said, "Hey, we're gonna reboot these classics, but it's not gonna be like a universe. We're not gonna bother." But
they've been doing it so many times. They've rebooted Dracula. They rebooted the Wolfman with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. They just keep on doing it, and it's like
the movies make money though. That's the thing. Like that's the part of Hollywood that maybe not a lot, but I mean if they're gonna break even on them, I'm like, yeah, it worked out okay.
I want to know what let's see. I want to know what the Wolfman 2010 did.
The Mummy from 2017, its budget was between 125 to 195 million, and its box office was 410 million. If you include like marketing costs and all that stuff that they did,
God.
I can imagine that it broke.
The Wolfman's budget was 150. It grossed 142 million. So it didn't. I mean, and that's not when you talk. That's not including advertising costs and stuff
all
like
those
that.
Hidden extra fees.
So the Wolfman bombed, and even though I like parts of the Wolfman, I fell asleep in the theater in the Wolfman, and I felt bad. I felt bad because I wanted to like it, man. I love Anthony Hopkins. I love Benicio del Toro. And some of the effects were really cool, but that movie was boring as hell. And I remember later on, I felt disgusted with myself that I had fallen asleep in a theater. I'd never done that before, and I felt disgusted. And so I rented that movie, and I was like, I'm going to give this movie a second shot. And I fell asleep on the couch while I was watching it. So 2 times. The third time was a charm. I made it through it, and it was still a bad movie. So it wasn't that good. But now we're getting another attempt because Ryan Gosling is next. He is the next Wolfman, baby.
So let's talk studio because so far it's unknown what the new take on Wolfman will look like. Right there, the sentence should have stopped, but they throw in something here. Though it is believed to be set in present times and in the vein of Jake Gyllenhaal's thriller Nightcrawler, with an obvious supernatural
by
twist.
Who?
Exactly.
I mean, they just picked.
They pick something out that they think would make sense or what they think would be really cool, and then don't source anybody. But
Nightcrawler is the furthest thing from a creature feature. It's just about a weird guy who's very eccentric about his work. I mean, in the vein of a crime thriller that about an anorexic cameraman, that doesn't make any sense.
So, and again, this is another thing. Like, this is why. Like, I don't like these early stories, but this is from Variety, which I don't know about.
Yeah, they called it an exclusive.
I've never known Variety to be the most incredible news source as far as
they're not the worst,
goes.
but
they're not the worst. But Universal and CAA had no comment. They said while there's no frontrunner at the time, Corey Finley, who recently received rave reviews for directing HBO's drama Bad Education with Hugh Jackman and Allison Janney, is said to be in the mix for the job. It's like so
basically, they're saying there is nothing
in the mix for the job. We have no idea who's directing the movie yet.
Yeah, basically they're saying they have the name for the movie and they have the guy that'll star in it, but they don't know what the movie's going to be about. They don't know what direction it's going to go. They don't know the type of and personality of the individual that will run it or the type and personality of the individual that directs it. And the
Well, we do have a
showrunner and the
script.
director, oh,
It's
we
like,
do.
yeah. So
We do?
Lauren Schuker Bloom and Rebecca Angelo, who wrote for Netflix's Orange Is the New Black, penned the script, which is based on an original pitch by Gosling.
Oh shit, I didn't hear about this. So they do have a story. And it was pitched by Gosling. So Gosling is pushing this. Wow.
So Gosling's take fell in line with the studio's new vision for its monster movies. Universal had originally planned on
Newest, latest vision.
Yeah. Well, no, wait here, because it gets better. Universal had originally planned on creating an interconnected universe with its vast catalog of monster IP, intellectual property. However, the studio reassessed after The Mummy with Tom Cruise misfired.
Reassessed.
And decided to move forward with filmmaker-driven projects based on the monsters' legacies, focusing on what made the characters endure over time.
They weren't forced into that.
Instead of prescribing a mandate that the films be part of a larger scheme, Universal loosened those restrictions and open sourced to filmmakers to create their own unique stories, which
they reassessed.
That is the right move. You do not create
from the get-go.
You do not try and create a movie universe. You try and create movies that have their own stories. So that's the thing about, like, it's the common comparison, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If Iron Man had ended where it was and they had no plans to make any future films, Iron Man could stand on its own 2 feet without any expectations for a sequel. That's the big thing. There were no other extra elements in there that we required any further explanation of, except for like the end credit scene. But that end credit scene, like if they hadn't planned on making any more films, they could have easily left that out. Iron Man would have left standing on its own feet, and that was it. It would have been and people would have hailed it as the perfect comic book movie, and been begging for others. We need to see that. We need to see that with the other films that are hoping to create these movie universes, instead of having them be a part of an overarching thing. Like, write the movies after, like, instead of writing the movies and getting all your ideas beforehand, before you've even released your first one, to have this idea, let the stories flow organically. It's like, all right, this was opened up with let's say that they play off of The Invisible Man. I have not seen The Invisible Man yet, but if they were going to continue inside that same vein of universe, you're still not looking at any like major connections. You're just talking about like subtle nods between the main characters from that, the main characters from maybe not the main characters, but some references back to those events, and then just kind of slowly build that universe over time, instead of having the expectation of having this big overarching universe come all together at once. Like, let it flow organically. I think that's how it would be good to go. I think you'd have a better result, and also like erring on the side to let filmmakers tell their stories instead of having some overarching plan that they have to fit into. Because I also think that's
for sure.
Because I also think that's what happened. That's where things went wrong with Star Wars, is that they had like the studios had a plan instead of letting the filmmakers continue to tell their stories. They're like, all right, sorry, JJ, we're going to let Ryan come in here. Give him your notes. If he follows it, great. If not, who cares?
And let's not forget that
Then they told Ryan what he had to do, and then they told JJ what he had to do in the ending of it, and it was just crap. It's like, no, just let one guy tell this story.
And this has happened with the MCU as well. I mean, yes, the MCU is the biggest, most lucrative cinematic universe, but let's not forget Joss Whedon had the same complaints about Age of Ultron. He had his story that is wanted to tell, but he had to weave in these extra scenes with Thor talking about the stones and everything. We hear this a lot, that studios wish that they had their own MCU, but let's not forget that the MCU, as big as it is, as lucrative as it is, it did not bring the world together until its 22nd film.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I will say that its 20th film, was it the 20th film, Black Panther? No, that was the 19th
I
film.
was gonna
The
say, no.
18th film. It was the 18th film. That brought a huge group of people, a huge demographic of people to the theaters that many argued would not go on a normal basis. So that brought a lot of people together. But uh, Endgame was the big. It made so much money because so many people went to see that movie that don't normally go to MCU movies. They saw it as because it was advertised as the culmination of 10 years, as the big finale, as if there's ever a Marvel movie that you're going to go see, you go see this one because it's a historic event. So people came out for that, but they had to do 21 other films to get to that point. And most studios don't have the money or the time or the energy or the creative thinking to get to that point. So stop thinking that's the way to go, because most studios don't want to just cater to the audience that the Marvel movies do. The Marvel movies wishes they were for everybody, but they're really not. They're for the people that like those type of movies. And most other studios want their movies, even though they're in genres, to be as relatable to as many people as they want. So the least connected to the bigger things it is, the more relatable it is. The less homework other people have to do before they
Exactly.
see your movie. So
I don't know. Like, I keep saying that we shouldn't compare movie universes to the MCU, but it's hard not to.
it's hard not
And
to when you set yourself up for it.
yeah, and it's also my favorite one. So it's like,
Did you see The Invisible Man? I can't remember. Did you see it?
no, no, I
I
haven't.
really want you to see it, man. I really want you to see it. I really enjoyed it.
It's like,
It was
I'm not a horror guy at all, so I actually have a really pathetic history of the horror films that I've actually seen. To a point where, like, your disappointment in me and some of the films that I haven't seen pales in comparison to the ones that you don't know that I haven't seen yet. Because
okay. But scary elements does not make it a horror. It was a sci-fi thriller, and there's a difference. There's a difference
but
between
it's
thriller and a horror.
true, but the way that it was marketed, and I said this in our trailer reaction, that I hope that it wasn't just a film built for like jump scares and crap like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's to me, there's a difference between like suspense. I love a good suspense thriller, but
Mhm.
like the gore or the jump scare or like the haunting horrors, it's just not interesting to me. It's that fear doesn't. I don't get hit by that fear that much, especially when it's like supernatural stuff. So I don't have like that connection to it. But like the suspense thrillers, especially when they're based around real stuff or stuff that's capable of happening, that is what gets me more excited. And now I understand that that's weird, but it's specifically when it's built around fear being the main emotion that it's trying to provoke, versus other
Well,
like sci-fi, versus other like science fiction films where that is not their primary intention.
I think I think because Invisible Man was originally part of the Monsters IP, they had to market it as a horror type movie. But I mean, just like Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man was more sci-fi than horror, more creepy, as in like stalkerish, horn dog dude than scary. So was this.
That one I did
This
see.
wasn't this wasn't creepy horn dog scary. This was more sci-fi heavy. I mean, it came from the director of Upgrade, and it was about it was more sci-fi than horror, and it creeped you out only in that, what if we got to this point, as far as the capabilities of things. So
Yeah.
I really liked it, and I really think this could be fun. I wanted, like I said, I wanted to like that middle picture is Benicio del Toro's um, Wolfman, and I really wanted to like that because it looked great. There's some
Yeah, he
great
like
effects in that movie.
they did a great job with making him look as fucked up as they
Yeah,
could.
and it had Anthony Hopkins in it. Who doesn't like an Anthony
Yeah.
Hopkins movie? But it didn't work, and so if
I
Gosling,
didn't plan on seeing it anyway, so I was just like, all right,
yeah,
whatever.
if Gosling is behind this, which sounds like he's invested in it, especially to be on board this early, you know, that means he really believes in that script. So that's encouraging, because originally I was going to say, wow, this is some crazy early reporting. But to hear that there's a script already and he's pushing it, that's encouraging.
Yeah, the I like the idea, especially that they were like, you know what, we're abandoning the idea of having to stick to some overarching thing and letting filmmakers kind of go with what they're feeling as far as all that would lead
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better about studios giving that creative freedom to them instead of having something hovering over their heads. Like I said, I saw The Mummy because I loved the original Mummy. Not the original, but the Brendan Fraser remake. That was a great one. The Mummy 2 kind of sucked, and then The Mummy 3 was just fucking awful.
Sad, because they had Jet Li in it, and I love Jet Li.
Yeah, they did him dirty in that though.
They did.
It didn't go that well.
Didn't they fight like CGI Yetis in that film? Oh my gosh.
They fought, CGI Yetis fought for them, I think.
Oh, that's right.
To some degree or something like that. Like they called them or something. Like they called them as their ally. I'd be like, all right, we're just gonna throw that in as a real thing. It's like there's actually Yetis in the world. It's like that to me, that's crazier than fucking a mummy coming back to life. Because shit, we knew that ancient people have been dead for a while, but seeing a fucking Yeti out of nowhere and you can call them up like it was an old buddy or some shit, and they'll come fight with you. But he's like, what? Like, I don't know. Yeah. It was messy as shit. It was really bad.
It was.
But yeah, when I saw the most recent Mummy, because when I saw Tom Cruise in there, I was like, all right, they're probably not marketing this one as a horror film. It looked like it was going to be more of it was going to kind of fit more in that adventure vein, and it kind of was, but it still sucked. I mean, it looked more action than horror to me.
I mean, I liked the concept of the trailer, but the trailer itself had more like laughable moments than intriguing moments. And then it had, what's the name of that scream that's in like every movie?
The Wilhelm scream?
Yeah, it had that scream.
What happened?
It had Tom Cruise's version of that scream, and they repeated it twice in the trailer. It was like, ooh! And then 2 seconds later, ooh! Like they just cut it, and then they replayed it twice as he was falling out of this plane. And and everybody was like, are you that lazy? You had to just play the same yell twice, and it became like more popular than the other scream. But yeah. But speaking of trailers, do you want to round off this hour with our attempt at a trailer review with this platform?
So for those of you listening to this audio only, we are going to close out the audio only side here. We're going to move on to a trailer reaction. So if you have not checked us out on YouTube, definitely do so. But yeah, we're going to do some trailer reactions as parts of these podcasts until we can go back to our original format, which, I mean, we might not do if this ends up working out super well. But we're trying this out for the first time. For those of you watching on the video side, this is the first trailer reaction that we have done with this live format that we're doing. So please excuse any technical difficulties that we may or may not run into, but Josh tested it beforehand, and I think we had a pretty good look for it. So, but yeah,
I think it'll work. We'll see.
So before we actually close out the audio only side, just say, so what's the trailer going to be for? Cause I mean, I saw Kevin James and I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny cause we've been talking about Kevin James's YouTube channel and how he just keeps on putting out this stuff, and it's been fun. But apparently
ever since his YouTube channel, I've gotten more excited about seeing what else he'll do.
I know, it's like, is he just bored? But because not only are these videos that he keeps on putting out funny, but they're like high quality. I mean, they have to take some time to put together, and he's put out so many. And I was worried that it was because he was just like bored but creative at the same time. But apparently he found time to do this movie called Becky, and I don't know what it's about, but the picture on the screen right now shows a girl with a bloody face and him like with missing an eye and a patch on his face and a long ass beard.
Is this a real trailer? Or is this just something that's on his YouTube channel as like something funny?
Oh yeah, wouldn't that be fun? No, it's a real trailer. It's a real trailer. Well, so let's. You want to try to do this here? I'm gonna have to.
Let's give it a go.
I'm gonna have to switch screens here. So.
Nerfherders who are listening on the audio side, thank you for tuning into this episode. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check us out on YouTube so you can see our trailer reaction that we're about to do here. And we appreciate you guys being along for the ride. We will catch you again soon. But for now, on to our trailer reaction.
Okay, give me a second. I have to switch which screen I'm sharing. So let's share screen, and gonna do this.
Still gonna see our faces.
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say that's kind of like the pinnacle part of a. Oh, there we go. All right.
But apparently, this is the better way to do it. So, okay, are we ready?
Yeah, let's kick it off.
Tell me if you can't hear anything.
I'll let you know. I can't hear anything.
Well, neither can I yet.
What happened by your fort, Becky?
I got audio.
Okay.
Search continues for 4 inmates who escaped federal custody this morning.
Oh, does he have to be a Nazi?
Come on, boy, let's go swimming.
Oh, can you wait a sec?
What is she doing here?
Let her walk all over you. She's 13.
Jeff, this gentleman lost his dog.
Okay, well, why don't you give us your number?
My dog is a Rottweiler. Purebred, or as the Germans call them, Rottweiler Metzgerhunds.
Of course.
Or you never let them mate with other breeds. You get the worst of both.
Okay, I think it's time for you to go.
Stay calm. I'm looking for a key. It has this symbol engraved on it. You seen it? No. Well, that leaves little Becky. Where's Becky?
Wait.
He's gonna hold your dad still while I hurt him.
I'm not gonna let them get away with this.
There once was a little girl.
Becky! When she was good. Stop running! She was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrible.
What was the point of all of this? For a key?
It's worth much more than that.
Becky! You're clearly a special girl!
I don't want to have to hurt you.
But I do want to hurt you real bad.
All right, so the audio was a little bit messed up. So when I heard it, I don't know. For
Like
you,
out of sync?
It wasn't necessarily out of sync, but hopefully for the recording side, it ends up going good because you're actually hosting the recording right now. But yeah, it looked like it's just like a really messed up Home Alone. like a really fucked up Home Alone, and honestly, I can kind of get behind that.
The tone was a little. The tone was a little all over the place.
At first it, like when he was like describing the dog, I was like, I expected it to be some sort of like weird comedy or something like that. Just because it's like we never let them breed with other dogs. You get the worst of both. I'm like, is that supposed to be a joke? But it wasn't funny. I was just like, is that supposed to be a joke? Because
I think if told
the cadence of a joke, didn't it? Like, didn't it?
Kind of. I think if told by a creepier person, it might have been more like had more weight to it. But with Kevin James saying it, it would kind of like.
I think that was the problem.
Like, okay.
I was like I wanted to laugh, but at the same time, I was just kind of like, that wasn't really funny.
I was having a hard time taking him seriously. Whereas,
yeah, that was a difficult thing.
What was that recent KKK movie about the band that had to play for the KKK?
I'm not familiar with.
And it had what's his name? It had Jean-Luc Picard as a Klansman. Green Room. Oh my God, Green Room. When Jean-Luc Picard said some KKK stuff in Green Room, you were on the edge of your seat, man. You were like, this is legit. This is creepy. This is intense. It didn't matter that you have seen him as the Starfleet captain for years. He was a compelling villain. And granted, movie could turn out to be well, but Kevin James, he wasn't selling it for me in this.
Well, yeah,
but he looked the part. He looked interesting.
He's like, to quote Tommy Boy, Patrick Stewart could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves.
Yeah.
he is a brilliant actor. So yeah, that I can buy. No,
Green Room, go see it if you haven't seen it, people.
This trailer here, I wasn't buying this as a horror thing or anything like that. This one, I don't like as it was going along, I kind of felt like it was gonna lead to it because I'm so used to watching his YouTube channel now. I was just kind of like waiting for a joke, or I was waiting for a punchline of some kind.
When they zoomed in on the girl, doing the traps and stuff, it almost felt like a Wes Anderson film type thing at times. And the music and then her get up looked weird. I was waiting for it to turn out to be like, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Babysitter, which I think it's from Mick G.
Was that the Netflix?
Yeah, the Mick G one. And that was very violent, and it was supposed to be like a horror movie about a kid trying to stay alive, but it had so much humor infused into it that it was like hilarious and like super fun. And I felt like this movie had the potential to go that route, but the trailer was trying to sell you that it was a serious movie. So I don't know.
So this is an interesting thing though about the movie. So as I look it up, Kevin James is an R-rated horror film, and it's heading straight to drive-ins this weekend, and that's as of June 2nd. So we're talking this coming weekend. We're gonna have this in. Kevin James is taking on a completely new role, the villain in a horror movie. The King of Queens comedy act. I can't believe they got that wrong. This is from Cinema Blend though. So the King of Queens comedy actor will be the central convict at play in the home invasion thriller Becky. Along with its upcoming release on VOD this Friday, James's latest role will also premiere in almost 50 drive-in theater screens this weekend. 50?
Can you believe that? A brand new movie is premiering in how many theaters over the United States?
I don't know.
50. It's crazy, man. It's so crazy.
Drive-ins in 14 states are participating in showing Becky with overwhelming
14
support.
States.
Yeah, with overwhelming support from Ohio theaters, according to Bloody Disgusting. Becky comes from Quiver and Redbox Studios and is directed by Jonathan Millett and Carrie Murnian of 2017's Bushwick, starring Dave Bautista, and 2014's Cooties, starring Elijah Wood. The script was written by newcomers Nick Morris, Ruckus Skye, and Lane Skye. And I'm not. There's more to the article there, but yeah, going to drive-ins, interesting.
Drive-ins, yeah.
Honestly, when I think of a horror film, like a classic horror film, I always think of the drive-in aesthetic, because that was such a common theme. Like when you'd see a drive-in theater represented in media or something like that, they were almost always showing a horror film, like
Twister with The Shining, wasn't
Twister, it? Twister, that 70s show was another one. They were watching The Omen on that one. October Sky. I don't know if you remember October Sky, but that was another one where we went to the drive-in to see Frankenstein meets the Wolfman or something like that. I don't know. It was always a scary movie because you always wanted to cuddle up with your date in the car or something like that and do the dirty at the drive-in. So I don't know. It was just a classic movie trope was always the drive-in theater and the horror film, but not with Kevin James, who's normally a comedian playing a dude with a swastika tattooed on his head.
It felt a bit over the top, and then you're like, what's with this key and everything? But I mean, it could be a good film, and there is a second trailer out there. It's a Red Band trailer, so I didn't want to play that one, and I haven't seen that one. But it could be good. I'll definitely check it out because I love Kevin James, and if his YouTube channel has told me anything, it's that he can sell a concept, and so maybe this trailer just does the movie itself wrong. But I mean, any type of R-rated Home Alone-esque movie I'll see, even if it has the shred of a chance that it'll be good. So I'll see it. Why did I go back there?
I'll let you see it and then find out, because it's gonna be on VOD, so I'll get a chance to actually check it out on some platform or another.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a horror film, so I'm gonna let you screen it for me, and then
there you go.
And then we'll go from there.
There you go.
But yeah, all right. So that format worked out okay. Like I said, the audio for me was a little garbled, but
Oh, it was garbled. Okay.
yeah, it was almost as if if you had been holding your microphone up to the speakers, that was kind of what it sounded like for me. I was like, so it wasn't like I was getting like the full audio coming out to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't
Well, and I
know
was
what
even
up with that.
following the thing of doing it correctly, so we'll have to experiment with that more in the past, but or in the future. We'll have to experiment with this more in the past. Yeah, in the future.
When we do future ones, maybe if we can't get that issue figured out, I'll just like mute and watch the trailer separately at the same time.
Or something.
Like
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it turns out on the back end.
I got the visuals, and they didn't sell me on that, and so I don't imagine that the audio would help too terrible much. But it did. I got like a really fucked up Home Alone vibe off of it, which I think was at least one of the vibes they were trying to sell. Yeah,
so
an R-rated.
At least they got that
Home
point.
Alone looked pretty good. So.
If Home Alone had Nazis,
if Macaulay Culkin makes an appearance, I'm watching this movie. It's like that'll be all I need.
Is that all?
Like,
is that all you need?
Yeah. Fucking, damn. Come on, man.
He's in the woods. He's like, listen, let me give you some pointers.
Or maybe
I've gone through this before.
Maybe
Who
like
are you?
Maybe like early on in the film, she's like watching YouTube tutorials of how to like set traps and stuff, and he's the fucking YouTuber doing it.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin.
You know, that would be hilarious.
His official name is now.
That would be hilarious if somebody did a Home Alone spoof movie kind of like this, except they did all of the things from Home Alone, but showed the realistic consequences of those things.
Oh, they'd be dead. They'd be dead like a third into that scene.
I know. So you just have a bunch of people, but then you do everything like the paint bucket from the top of the stairs, and you watch the gory.
Done.
Yeah,
Gone.
I mean that would make it rated R, and then people could get what they always wanted, like Home Alone, but with realism. Literally, like they do a different plot, but they do every single kill from Home Alone that should have been a kill.
That's really
I would watch the shit out of that.
So I think before they even get into the house, because let's see, he opens up by shooting them with a BB gun. Which wouldn't.
He put ice on the stairs.
He put ice on the stairs. That could at least immobilize somebody if he hit hard enough.
Didn't he drop bricks from the ceiling, or was that the second one?
That's the second one.
Okay.
That I'm surprised they got away with doing that one, because he was chucking them from like 5 stories up. And Marv got hit like 5 times. Like it was so unfortunate for him.
Oh, the first one, wasn't there a flamethrower to the head? Like
flamethrower. Let's see, BB gun, slipping downstairs, the 1,000,000-degree door handle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The flamethrower, nail through the foot, and then landing on your back on a concrete floor on top of that. The iron to the face coming through the laundry chute. Just all of these things. First of all, I'd have been done after slipping down the stairs with the ice. Like my hips broken.
Oh, that back.
I've broken a
back
leg.
would be
Something.
jacked.
I'm done. I'm done at that point. There's no more home invasion at that point. But I don't know. If I had a kid shoot me with a BB gun, I think I'd be just angry enough to try
Point
and
blank. Point blank.
Nuts and face.
Point blank, that BB's going somewhere. It don't just pop off. It digs in.
Those burglars had remarkable determination to get into that house.
Yeah.
So
paint bucket to the face though will put you down. Just saying, if it's a full paint bucket.
But it was the silver tuna. That was the house. That was the house. So
yeah,
maybe they were just that ambitious.
I guess.
You know what? On that note, I think that's gonna wrap this episode up, Nerfherders. If you want to, if you caught into this late and you don't have time to watch it on video, we upload these episodes to audio only. You can catch us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, and a bunch of other different platforms. So you can find us there. Also subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't have to worry about catching any future episodes. We do about 2 a week on average if schedules aren't absolutely crazy. And we've also got other video content. Josh just put out another anime review, and I had another episode of my Jedi Fallen Order playthrough with a couple more to come before the finale, before we're actually done.
Yeah.
Then,
Hey, on that, I have been getting suggestions for animes. A lot of them have been recent titles, and it's not that I don't respect. Like, some people have actually said, "Why aren't you watching anything like from the last 10 years?" And it's really because we've tried that, and because YouTube restrictions, it's harder to get around that. Like, it's either the visuals or it's the sound that's immediately recognizable. I'm not purposely trying to go after. It seems like everyone I've done so far has been from the 80s, but for some reason, none of those flag. But I've tried at least twice with some modern titles, and they all get flagged. And the reaction is kind of a big part of that, those videos. And so if it gets to the point where I run out of ones that aren't getting flagged, then I'll just take that reaction out. But for now, I'm trying to keep the format I have. So give me some older ones. Thankfully, after I've said that, a lot of you have given me some older ones to watch. So keep giving me older ones, and we'll go from there.
And you got a bunch of comments on some of them to respond to still, if you haven't already. Because you've drawn some attention there, so you got some work to do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I have a list. I do have a list.
Yeah, you do.
It takes me some time.
I've seen the list. It's long.
Yeah.
So yeah, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you like this episode. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Mm-hmm. And until next time, we will catch you guys later.
Next time.